All right, this is Mr. Wyrick. Today we're going to be going over this review. I'm going to post this. It'll be up on my YouTube channel. I'll try to remember to get it into the Google Classroom for you today and get a copy of this posted up. Now, we're just going to kind of go through selected ones. We're going to talk about some different stuff on here. I'm going to try not to waste too much of your time, and then we can spend some time today working on this. So on the first one, write negative 2 times 3x squared minus 3x plus 4. That's going to be a negative 6x to the third plus 6x squared minus 8x. If we're looking at this one, the key thing to remember here is we're multiplying. When it starts to talk about standard form means we're taking the exponents and we're going down in value on the exponents. So make sure that your exponents count down. You don't want to start, if they have them out of order, you don't want to start with them out of order. On the last quiz that we had, there was one question on there that a bunch of people missed that it said, make sure your answer is in standard form. And a lot of people took the one that was in the order that was on the page, as opposed to the one that was in the correct order, which would have been like this. Yes? Distribute, distribute, distribute. I just multiplied. When you classify by degree, that means you look at the highest numbered exponent and you give it a name based on that. This one's 3. It's cubic. And then the number of terms, 1, 2, 3, that's a trinomial. Okay, if there's one term, it's a monomial. 2 terms is a binomial. 3 terms is a trinomial. After that, it's a polynomial of however many terms. Yes?
Could you call it a third degree trinomial?
Yes, that would be a correct answer, but on the test it's going to be listed as cubic.
Okay.
Because the test is multiple choice. Like if it was just me grading it and you just writing classification, I would take cubic or third degree. Because it's on the test, it's multiple choice. You need to make sure that you know it's cubic.
So standard form means that it's
Descending order of exponents is standard form.
oh, the decreasing.
Yeah. Find the following. This is adding. You got to make sure you go in order again. So the very first one is going to be x to the third. There's no other x to the third. That's 2x to the third. Okay. Then we have x squared. This is a minus 2x squared. This is adding in between them. I'm not going to change those signs. So minus 2x squared.
Okay, I'm late. Why don't you change signs?
This is a plus and this one's a minus. If this was minus minus, subtracting a negative would go back to being a
Did
positive.
you just say that, kind of, or no?
Uh, not really. I've got 2x plus another x. So 2x plus another x is going to give me 3x. And then 3 plus a minus 2 is going to give me 1. Again, this is third degree, so it's cubic. And the number of terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is going to be a polynomial.
So the way you're supposed to do this kind of this way, every first by.
Okay, on this one, you do just need to be careful. If you have x to the third minus x to the third, that leaves you with not anything for x to the third. This is technically supposed to be a 2x squared, and we are subtracting a negative 2x squared. That minus minus is going to make it a positive 2x squared. Okay, you can rewrite this one as x squared like this. The 2x has nothing else on there. Plus 2x, and a minus 3 minus a positive 2 is going to be a minus 5. This is second degree, so it's quadratic.
How did you get the 2x to again?
1, 2, 3. It's a trinomial. I'm subtracting a negative. I'm subtracting a negative. I would treat this like a negative 1 and just go ahead and distribute it to everything so that you remember each part. But when I do that, like that negative 1 times this minus 2x squared, is going to give me a positive 2x squared. All right, on this one, factor 8x to the third minus 1. When I go to factor that, That's the difference of cubes. If you look at the back board right now, the formula for difference of cubes is there. It will remain there during the test. So all you have to do is be able to apply that formula. For those of you that are testing in the testing center, I printed them out, I cut them, I left them down there for you already. Okay, so you'll have access to the same thing. This one's difference. So I'm going to take the cube root, I get 2x. I take the cube root of 1, I get 1. That's my a, that's my b. So then I've got a squared, which is going to give me 4x squared. I've got a times b, 2x times 1 is 2x. And then I've got b squared. 1 squared is 1. Because this is a minus, it goes minus, plus, plus. Okay, this is a multiple choice test. There's 4 options. I guarantee you 2 of those options will have all of the numbers correct. And then the signs will be wrong on one of those. So you have to know how the signs fit into the pattern. Use synthetic division to divide this out. The x plus 2, we look at what makes that 0. A negative 2 makes it 0. Then I go with my coefficients. But I have to have the placeholders for the exponents that are not represented. So 5 is for x to the 4th. 0 is for x to the 3rd. Negative 1 is for x squared. 0 is for x. And then 1 is my number. I bring down my 5. That's 5. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. 0 minus 10 is a negative 10. Negative 10 times negative 2 is a positive 20. 20 minus 1 is 19. 19 times a negative 2 is negative 38. And then negative 38 plus 0 is negative 38. A negative 38 times a negative 2 is going to give me a positive 76. So this makes 77. The fact that that last one is not a 0 means that this is not a factor. Okay? The last number here is not 0. So this is not a factor. It doesn't go in evenly. If I put my answer on this one, it's going to be 5x to the 3rd. I start one variable or one exponent down from where I was because I'm taking x to the 4th and dividing it by x. So I've got 5x to the 3rd minus 10x squared plus 19x minus 38. And then this last part, this remainder, would be a fraction. So that'd be plus 77 over x plus 2. It's what I'm dividing by. Okay? Use Desmos to find the roots. This is just telling you graph to find the roots. Graph to find the roots. Okay? We may come back to this one. I may just let you kind of do it on your own time. But when we're doing the roots, the solutions, the zeros, the x-intercepts, it's where it crosses that. On the test, it's going to be, here's the graph, look at it, where does it cross? I think there's maybe one of them where you have to graph it for real, but you graph it and you just look at your graph. We won't be using Desmos, we'll be using the calculator instead. Yes?
Why is it 5x?
When I divide 5x to the 4th by x, like if I ignore everything else in there and just look at the fact that I'm dividing 5x to the 4th by x, that would change it to 5x to the 3rd. When you divide, you subtract those exponents.
And are roots x values or y values?
It should be the x values. It should be the x values. If it's not the point. Like they may just put the full point, like negative 2, 0, negative 3, 0, stuff like that.
Okay.
If they don't do that on the test, because I haven't looked real closely at it, because I don't want to know. Yeah. Use Desmos to find the maxima, minima, zeros, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what this looks like for sure, but it goes like this. Because it's x to the 3rd and it's positive. It's going to have a 0 here, 1 here, and 1 here. Those are the zeros. This is the maxima. If you're asked to find a maxima, remember it's that point where it turns around. You can analyze the graph using the calculator. If you need some help doing that during the test, I don't mind helping you out with something like that. Just kind of guide you through it. The minima is over here, down at the bottom. The increasing and decreasing segments, the increasing is where it goes uphill, the decreasing is where it goes downhill. You should be able to look at Desmos, use one of the graphing calculators, something like that, and find these. I'm not too worried about your abilities to do that. Anthony factored the expression blah, blah, blah as this. Why is this not correct? This is the sum of cubes.
What?
This is a perfect cube. This is a perfect cube. It should fit the pattern. This is wrong. Because if you were to draw this out and multiply these together using the boxes, you would not get this. When you have cubed on the outside, you don't just cube the things inside of it. That's not how it works. So this one should be 3x plus 4. And then it should be 9x squared minus 12x plus 16. It fits the pattern of what we have back there on the backboard. Okay? It won't probably just come out and say, hey, this is the sum of cubes. Hey, this is the difference of cubes on the test. But you should be able to look at it and be like, oh, okay, I should factor this like the ones that are on the backboard. You can look up at it. You can see the pattern. You can make sure you're choosing the right one. On the back side, Andrea was told to solve this. Her answer was blah, blah, blah. What's wrong with her answer? She didn't solve. All she did was factor. She needs to take those and say x plus 1 is equal to 0 and x minus 11 is equal to 0. So then on this, she gets a -1 and a +11. All right? We had trouble with this when we had the test over factoring and solving, because we'd get to one that said solve, and we would factor it correctly, but not solve it. Make sure if it says solve, that you go ahead and get that thing solved. Sean was told to factor the expression x squared plus 5x plus 6. He factors x plus 6, x minus 1. What's wrong? 6 times a -1 makes a -6. He should have factored it as x plus 2 times x plus 3. You should always be ready and willing on these things to multiply them back together and see what it's going to do. Renee was told to factor the expression x to the 4th minus 13x squared plus 36. He factored it as x squared minus 9 and x squared minus 4. What's wrong with his answer? Give the correct answer. The only thing that's wrong with his answer is he's not done. Both of these are the correct factors of what's going on here on number 10. But what's not done here is both of those are difference of squares. You can factor them again. So this would be x plus 3 and x minus 3 for the x squared minus 9. And it would be x plus 2 and x minus 2 for the x squared minus 4. You can factor it another time. What's wrong with the way Julian factored the expression x squared plus 16 equals x plus 4 and x minus 4? Again, a plus 4 times a minus 4 doesn't make a positive 16. He multiplied wrong. The one that would factor that way is if you had x squared minus 16. X squared plus 16 is not factorable. There's nothing you can do about it. We can't do sum of squares. Difference of squares is the only one that's possible when it's squares. Okay? You can do sum and difference of cubes, but you can't do the sum of squares. Use synthetic division to factor this out. When you do the synthetic division, what makes this 0? A positive 5. Then we have 1, -4, -77, and 360. We bring down the 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. 1 times 5 is 5. -77 plus 5 is -72. And a -72 times 5 is 360, bless you. We end up with 0. This becomes x squared plus x minus 72. We can still factor that. So when it says factor completely, we're looking at this one. It's going to multiply to make a negative 72, add together to make a positive 1. That's going to be x plus 9 and x minus 8. 9 minus 8 gives us the 1 that we need there for the middle, and 9 times a negative 8 gives us the negative 72 that we need there on the end. So the complete factorization of this is going to be x plus 9, x minus 8, and x minus 5. If you multiply those all together, you get this. There's a workaround for this, okay? If you're trying to work one of these, this is what you're stuck on, and you're pressed for time on the test, guess what? Graph this, and then graph the answers, and whichever ones make the exact same graph, that's the correct answer. Now, is that what I want you to do mathematically? No. Is that what I want you to do if you're running out of time? Yeah, probably.
How do you graph the answers?
Like graph exactly like this. Like you go in on your calculator and you put parentheses x plus 9, parentheses x minus 8, parentheses x minus 5.
And then you put in x.
And then you put in the x to the third minus 4x squared minus 77x plus 360. Whichever one of those share the exact same graph, those would be correct.
Thank you for that.
Did you add the x minus 5 at the end because it's a factor?
Yes, that's the original one that they told me was a factor. So I used synthetic division to get what I had left, then I factored that. On the multiplying, I'm not going to bother to multiply these out. You can multiply these out. Just remember, you will need the full set of boxes on here. And I'll post this answer later. I just don't want to go through the whole thing on the video. So this would be x to the third plus 2x squared minus 5x, and then x squared minus 3x plus 10. You just multiply everything all the way across the boxes. Your like terms should be on the diagonals, and you'd be able to put those together. Okay, long division. I'm going to tell you right now, I'll put the answer to this one up. We are not going to do the long division, so just look for what's going to multiply if one of the questions on the test requires it. If there's if there's an answer that's like this, if there's something that's asking you to divide by one that has a number in front of the x, it's going to require long division. There's a weird workaround for synthetic, but it's not always reliable. Like, it's kind of hard to do. We didn't do the long division in class, but it's going to give you some kind of answer. So if you take that answer, put it in the boxes, and multiply it by 2x minus 1, it should multiply to give you this. So you should be able to just check those answers.
What do you mean by ponzi?
Okay, so let's go back a little bit and look. Like, if I was supposed to factor this, x squared plus x minus 72, and I didn't know how to factor, but I did know how to multiply. If I looked at my answers, and one of my answers said x plus 9 and x plus 8, then I could say, okay, let's check that. And multiply x plus 9 and x plus 8. X times x is x squared, x times 9 is 9x, or sorry, this is minus 8. X times a negative 8 is negative 8x, and negative 8 times 9 is a negative 72. If I multiply those together and get that, that's x squared plus x minus 72, which is what I was supposed to be factoring, so I know that those are the correct factors. Even though I can't factor, I can multiply, so I can get the right answer on a multiple choice test.
So where does that single x come from?
So we're trying to look for the.
Just the x squared plus x, what does that mean?
Yes. Like, if you can't figure out how you're supposed to divide this out, if you don't know how to do the long division, if it doesn't make sense to you, then what you need to do is look for the answers, take those answer choices, and multiply them together and see what makes this. that it's asking you to divide. It's just doing the stuff in reverse. Like if they say 10 minus question mark equals 3, you're like, okay, 3 plus something equals 10. I'm just going to do it in reverse. On the bottom, the factor by grouping. I group these two together. I've got x to the third plus 5x squared. I can factor x squared out of that, and I get x plus 5. On the second grouping, do I need to zoom in further?
No, I was writing it.
Oh, okay. I just group these first two, and I factored out an x squared. Then I'm going to group the second two. They're both negative, and my answer over here was positive. I'm going to factor out a negative 2, and that gives me x plus 5. Since both of these that I factored out, the x plus 5 and x plus 5, since they match, I know my answer is correct. And my answer is going to be x squared minus 2 times x plus 5. Same thing with the last one here. A squared plus 3ay, I can factor out an a, and that'd be times a plus 3y. The 2ay squared and 6y cubed, I can factor out 2y squared. I get a plus 3y. So my factors are a plus 2y squared and a plus 3y. Both of these are divisible by 2. This has y squared and this has y to the third, so I can take at least y squared out of it. Okay, I will get a key posted of this later today. If there are any other questions, make sure you catch me either later today during flex or before school tomorrow. Go ahead and hit stop on this.